Irit Eizips here for CSM Practice. We're here on another episode of how you're going to create a better customer success practice at your own company. And today we're going to dive in on one of those solutions that you can implement to create a more scalable customer success practice for your clients, increase adoption, get them super happy about working with you. I have a very special guest. She's called Christina Singh, VP of Customer Success at Split.io. She was also a finalist in the Customer Success Excellence Awards for US 2023. Christina, we're so honored to have you, honestly.
Thank you, Irit. Great to be here. Great to speak to the audience about what we created at Split, and hopefully we can share some best practices with everyone in terms of what we've learned and the success that we've had so far.
Tell me a little bit, like 30, 60 seconds. What is your team like? What kind of clients do you solve? What kind of problems do you solve?
Yeah, in terms of my team, I oversee the customer success team, professional services, and technical support. For us, our focus is helping our customers get the most value out of software that they've purchased. Split.io is a feature management platform. We primarily focus on working with engineers and product managers to help them release features faster through progressive delivery and experimentation. Now, this market is very much evolving. And so as a result, thought leadership and helping teams think about doing work differently is a core component to part of the customer success component at Split. And so that's why a lot of the methodologies and the scale practices that we've built out around learning for our customers.
Today, we're going to focus on one of the big initiatives you took on recently. Can you share a little bit about what it was and what prompted you to actually opt into it?
What we're going to talk about today is the learning management system that we created, and it's called Split Arcade. The reason why we embarked on that was because when I started at Split, we were onboarding customers and the CSMs were doing that. And it was very one-to-one. And as we continue to grow and in hyper growth mode and in large enterprise organizations, we were realizing that we're bringing on hundreds and thousands of engineers onto our platform. And how do we find a scalable way in order to be able to do that? And so that was through a learning management system. Now, we've all been through some learning management systems, whether that's security at our company or through some learning. And we wanted to make sure that the experience was very much personalized to the personas that we were talking to, the developer and the product manager. And so we thought about gamifying the experience, which is why we call it Split Arcade.
Well, before we go into how you did it, and obviously the element of gamification, it was so critical here and making it almost like fun to go through. What was the impact of doing it the way you did it? Like, what was the impact on the clients, the impact on the organization, the impact on onboarding?
The first piece was we just wanted to save CSM time. I wanted them to be able to remove themselves from doing rote tasks and focus more on building the relationship, understanding the strategy of the customer. And so we've saved hundreds of hours of CSM time, but not only that, we actually saw increased actions from our customers in terms of those who are using the arcade. So we have a survey that we give before you start the training and then after. And we saw a 57% increase in confidence after the training and the certification, as well as we looked at cohort data from our existing customers. And for customers who had been maybe customers for 2 years and then they went through Split Arcade, we saw increase in terms of logins, actions, clicks. And from quotes that customers have shared with us, they told us, wow, I knew about experimentation in Split, but I didn't actually understand the capabilities until I went into Split Arcade. And that gave me the confidence to go into the platform, click around, and learn a little bit more.
If anything, that's such a great outcome, because how many times have we ourselves went into an LMS system and it's like a little bit of a wonky, outdated kind of feel to it. So do you think that if you didn't implement that strategy, what would have been the impact down the road 2, 3, 5 years later?
If we didn't implement it, one would be we have, I think, a lot of unhappy CSMs who are just not challenged and tasked with digging into those customer conversations. From an adoption perspective, we wouldn't be able to have that time to spend with customers. From a adoption perspective, in terms of the customer using the platform, understanding more features and being more curious about what they could be doing. I think that it would have an overall impact in churn, net retention, all of those standard SaaS metrics that we think about from a customer success perspective.
Do you think taking on LMS and gamifying it is something that particularly worked for your clients, or maybe it was tied to your company culture? What do you think it worked for you so well?
For us, I think it was part of how we approached it in terms of that gamification. Again, we thought about it from the persona perspective. Whenever I come into a customer success org, I don't have a standard playbook. I have pieces that I can pull from the playbook. And when I came in and learned about our persona, what they were trying to accomplish, and how they want to work asynchronously, it worked that the LMS was the right tool because they don't want to talk to us in the beginning. They just want to go and learn and maybe do this after hours. And then the way that we gamified it, it was around the audience, the personas that we felt like that was the right approach. So we didn't start off saying okay, I did this at another company, and so I'm going to replicate this approach to implementing a learning management system.
Did you feel when you decided to do the LMS system, how did you pick the right one? Did you know in advance that you wanted to gamify it and you were looking for something that could cater to that?
No, when we first were looking at LMS systems, we just looked at the gamut. We looked at those that have been tried and true in the industry, and then some of the newer players. We ended up going with a newer player called WorkRamp. We ended up choosing WorkRamp because we felt like we're a startup that was going to be flexible with what we were looking to achieve. And we wanted to also make sure that we had a lot of the data and the stats around usage and those components, and that we knew that we wanted to gamify it, how we were going to do that, and maybe how we were going to expand on that. We wanted to have a partner that would be along the journey with us. And so they certainly have been a great partner in thinking about some of our feature requests and working with us. Quite frankly, from a cost perspective, we're a growing company and we didn't have a lot of money to invest in a learning management system because we were like, we think that this is the right approach. As I stated earlier, we wanted to just at first save time for CSMs, but we didn't actually know that it would increase all of the adoption and the interactions that customers were going to have. So it was very much a looking at the landscape. We also had to sell it into our CFO. Here's the investment that we would be making. Based off of this investment, it would be saving us X amount of time, but this is the investment that we would be making. And then here's over time how we see we net in cost savings.
Absolutely. Okay. So you got the green light from the CFO, you got the vision, you chose the tool. Who did you harness from your own company to help you out with this project? And did you hire a consultant or somebody from the outside to help you with the content, the design? How does that work?
Well, I have a fabulous person on my team who runs learning and development. Her name's 𝘧𝘕𝘕𝘕. She's amazing. She helped design the Split Arcade. So we did everything in-house, and it took us about 6 months from initial idea, choosing the LMS, to launching the content. Now, the beauty is, one, I would say, regardless of what your learning approach is, what I've learned from a customer success perspective is making sure that you build that core center of excellence to help your team scale, especially in hyper growth mode, it is very important. And so Danielle was one of those first people that I hired to make sure, how are we thinking about the strategies to help our customers learn at scale and help our CSMs, again, remove that time that they're doing rote work. And so she has a learning background. It just so happens from education, but she, as well as we also had a lot of content that was already created and available. And so we've repurposed a lot of that content because it wasn't around lack of content for us. It was making sure that we made it consumable and approachable to our audience.
I want to talk to you about that because usually when you build LMS, you want to have videos and templates. And, when you do one-on-one, not everything is kind of very clean to be presented in an LMS. Did you have to actually purposely record sessions for the purpose of posting them at LMS? How much did you can just take the content and just post it? What were some of the challenges around that, if anything?
We had a lot of video content that we used initially, and we had to prioritize. We didn't want to spend a ton of time being completely perfect because we just didn't know how the field was going to react. So we started with okay, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What are the learning outcomes that we want to achieve? What's the current content that we have that we can reuse? And then what are the holes that we need to plug to build out that content? And that was the approach that we took. Now, we also knew that there was content that there were different people speaking, or the voice inflection, just because they were recorded at different times, wasn't great. And that was feedback that we ended up getting, and we've now gone back and made those updates. But we didn't want to spend a ton of time re-recording a lot of that content up front if it was going to be a complete flop. So we wanted to make sure we got that MVP out there, get feedback, and then see where we would need to iterate.
Maybe let's double down on what made it a success. I think there's two parts. First is like how you structured it, what was the experience like? And secondly is how did you promote it and got the engagement? So maybe we'll double down on the structure and the actual content and how you organized it to make it sticky.
In terms of the structure and the organization, again, just thinking about from standard learning outcomes and learning principles, thinking about not throwing all the content at you at once, and thinking about chunking out what you're going to learn, being clear on what the learning outcomes are. We have a bar at the top that shows, okay, how long is this section going to take you? How much are you 50% of the way there? So that gives you a feeling of progression. That was key. We also wanted to make sure it was a combination of content that was written content, video content, interactive content. We have feature flagging 101 for engineers. And it was about giving them content around what is a feature flag, because again, this is a category that's still very much evolving. So we wanted to provide some content about what it means to enable a feature flag, but then how to do that within Split. And so there's an education component, not only for our platform, but you can take with you education if you go to another company. And so that was important for us because we ultimately want to make sure that the learner is getting something out of this, and it's not necessarily about Split. We also, from a developer perspective, we wanted to make sure there was a safe experience to play with code and interact. And so that's built into the experience as well.
Just to recap, you chose the tool, you got the budget, you got your SME essentially to help you out. Probably other team members were also involved. And so the first thing you do, you structure what kind of outcomes you want, the type of content you're going to deliver in order to achieve the outcomes. You made sure that you have the right mix of content. You also made sure that it's not just about features and functions, but there's also something that the person can take away to become a better professional. And so you got all this mixed up. Now you're ready to implement it into the tool. And so we're just about to dive into how did it look like?
This is what our certifications look like. We have different certifications based off of the persona. So our common personas are the engineer, product manager, and administrator. So here we see we've gamified the experience. We have level 1, feature flagging foundations for engineers, level 2, advanced feature flagging for engineers. And you'll see there's 5 modules versus 4 modules. And so we wanted to make sure it was clear for everybody, and we broke out the content so it's not too long. And then at the end, you get a certification and a certificate that you can share on your LinkedIn and share with your team members. These are other certifications that we have, feature flagging foundations for admins. So we want to make sure that we had an opportunity to talk to each of our personas in a specific and a unique way.
Is this the first thing you encourage your end users to do when they just get their user license for Split.io? Is, hey, first get the certification, or is this like just one of those more popular ones that they opt in to get naturally?
This is very much the first thing that we have all of our customers go through, especially our SMB customers. We actually send an automated email to them and get them certified right away. And they've given us so much positive feedback in terms of being able to use Split. And then we have more within our mid-market and enterprise customers. They typically want that first experience to be a little bit more of a hand-holding, and then we introduce them to the Split Arcade. Also, for existing customers, if new people come on, new users, they hire new engineers, new product managers, they go through the Split Arcade. And then what we do is we have a session. Do you have any specific questions as it relates to your organization and how you might use Split? Then we have that as a follow-up conversation, which is so much more impactful and beneficial to us as well as to the customer, because we're actually able to talk about real use cases versus theoretical.
How do you make sure, first of all, if you work with enterprise clients, they might have a team of 100 engineers or potential end users. So sometimes what I see happens with some companies is that as employees leave and new employees come from their enterprise clients, the new employees might not know that they have this solution that they could use. Do you have like a secret sauce on how to make sure that every time a new employee comes to your client, they actually go through this process of getting a license and going through the certification?
Many teams that we work with, especially on the enterprise, are a centralized service center of excellence. And so we work with them to develop a page, whether that's a Notion page or a Confluence page, and here are all the resources to get started. And Split Arcade is key to that. And we actually have some enterprise customers that tell us customers are not allowed to get a license into Split until they've gone through the arcade and become certified, because they want to make sure that you can potentially be making changes into production, and they want everyone to have a baseline understanding of how to use Split.
I guess if you were to move to another company at some point, Christina, and you had to rebuild that process for someone else and they didn't have that built in the product, how could you mimic that?
Part of it is we show the data. We show the data of those who haven't gone through the arcade and then those who have pre and post. And it's pretty dramatic to see what that looks like. Because if you go in and you can play around, I say that you could probably get the core functionality of Split, but the beauty is that there is a lot of dials and knobs that you can turn. And so understanding how to use segments or understanding how to progressively roll out a feature and how to kill a feature in production, those are key components that you want to make sure that your team is trained on, and then they can think about where to utilize that. We often actually use this analogy of when you get a car, you have to have a driver's license. And so this is your driver's license for how to use Split. And the initial training is 2 hours. We try to make it very consumable. Typically, if you were to have a one-on-one session, it would be 1 hour and people are busy. They're on their laptops. They're running from meeting to meeting. We said, okay, you have 2 hours that you can dedicate, and maybe you're doing it on your own time. Or some customers, what they do is they get everybody in a room together, buy lunch, and say, we're going to sit here for 2 hours and we're all going to get certified together.
It's more customer centric to allow some self-serve channeled for your new users versus forcing them to be talking to you. Even though we think it's more of a concierge service when we have a personal touch, sometimes not everybody wants it. They don't have time. They might be too busy, and you're actually catering to their busy schedule if you offer that as an option and then augment that with a personal touch as needed. Christina, so you have the LMS set up. People are going gaga for the certifications. Did you put anything else there besides the certification by persona?
The other things that today we've just continued to expand on what we're doing and get feedback. We've actually taken a little bit of break on the LMS because it's just been working so well. And then we've thought about other areas that we continue to expand on. But actually now what we're trying to do is, as we mentioned on the enterprise side, sometimes they want a little bit more hand-holding. And so we've been working on what is that initial introduction and to get people into the platform right away, get that aha moment, and then move them into the arcade. The other piece that we also have done is you want to learn from others. And so join our Split community. We have a Slack community, and you can learn more or share what you've learned with others.
What are you thinking for the year ahead? How are you going to double down on digital CS or just like these one-to-many options to help them learn about sticky features or additional use cases?
Yes, two of the things that we have started doing is webinars specific to features that we find either customers enjoy, but not everyone is using. And it is a feature that drives a lot of additional usage and benefit for our customers. So that's one that we're doing. We also have smaller virtual roundtables on timely topics like AI and experimentation. We are bringing about 10 customers into a conversation, and we're just talking about, here are some of the best practices that we've seen, what are other customers doing, and having it be a safe space to have a conversation about what we see the trends that are happening. And so those are two of the things that we're doing to extend learning and thought leadership.
Okay, so for the webinars, it sounds like you already did a couple of them. What do you think works best? Is it to get a topic about a feature function and get your SME on the product, speak about that? Or is it to bring a customer that's using the feature and talk about that? Where did you have like the most attendance, the most engagement? What do you think works best?
For now, we've only brought in our SME to talk about what the feature is, and then we've alluded to, here's the results that customers have seen. In the future, we definitely want to bring customers in and have them speak on their behalf about what their experience has been. That just takes a little bit more time, given approvals and things like that. But even with this investment in the Split Arcade and the things that we've been doing, we've actually seen customers more willing to speak on our behalf and with us because they've now seen that end benefit.
Now, my second question was, are you promoting those in the LMS?
We actually have not been yet, but there is a space that says events. We do post some external events that are on there, but we haven't yet posted those to the webinars there, but definitely a good idea that we should be doing that.
Okay, and speaking of promotions, how did you get so many of your clients to opt into doing the certification?
Yeah, in terms of how we started was, one, we kind of just didn't give them a choice. We said, this is our new standard practice. And actually customers, they were like, that's great. Because if you think about it, to get 20 or 50 people or 100 people in a room, find the time, sometimes it can take 2 weeks to a month to schedule that training for 1 hour, and everyone's just busy. And the idea of removing a meeting from the calendar, allowing people to work asynchronously, it was an invaluable time saver that our customers saw, and they thanked us for it. And then as we've continued to get customers using it and they've given us quotes, we've shared that on social media, promoted that. Anytime a customer gets a certification and they post it on LinkedIn, we go and we congratulate them and we say thank you. And so we try to promote this culture of learning and inclusiveness of appreciating that they spent the time going through the certification.
I think I heard you say that you mandated it. Tell me how that works. How do you mandate something like that? Like, what if they don't do it?
On the SMB side, our entire approach is that's how you're going to get certified. I've talked to the CSM that manages that book of business, and she's like, it's amazing. I have not done a Split 101 in months, almost a year, and my customers actually enjoy it because they want to spend the time talking to me about the specific details. In the enterprise, it's been a little bit harder, as we talked about, but when we work with the teams that are that center of excellence, and they go through it and they learn that they get less questions, they've realized, okay, this should be a part of how we onboard all team members.
If somebody's listening to this and they say, you know what, we have an LMS, it's not gamified, we're not getting these results that Christina's getting, or they don't have it at all, or they have something that's like super old, they have something, but it's not a certification. Where should they start?
I would take a step back and think about who your customer is, what are their needs, and what are their challenges. And if you can identify those pieces and then think about what are ways that, whether that's existing content or something that you already have that you can modify and tweak to help make that experience better. And maybe that's not through an LMS initially. Maybe that is through a webinar that's one-to-many. Maybe that's through a newsletter that you create that shows here are wins that customers have had and gives a little bit more information. But I think that there's lots of different ways to understand. It has to start off with who's your customer, who's your audience, and what's the right way to interact with them.
For those that do not have the luxury of having like a Danielle, like an SME about learning and how to do LMS properly and like gamifying it and all of that, they don't have somebody like that on their team. And they wanted to learn more about best practices around setting up a certification program or even just learning about features. As you were going through this process, it's been like 6 months in the working. Did you read any blogs or watched any videos or podcast episodes that you would recommend others to go check out if they wanted to be a little bit more savvy about this?
There's definitely a lot of great learning content on LinkedIn in terms of how people learn. So that's a good basis for thinking about just learning best practices in general. And then you can determine how you tailor that in what format and what channel, whether that be on the web, asynchronously, via a newsletter. So that would be one. WorkRamp is the tool that we use for our learning management system. They have the Learn podcast and a lot of content that comes out of that. And then, Gainsight is the customer success platform that we use. And so Nick, Meta, and the Gainsight team always put a ton of thoughtful content that's out there to understand what best practices are in the digital space.
Christina, thank you so much. I learned a lot about how to structure and build and approach building certification programs that actually work and create engagement, more activity, and actually people really liking being your partner. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
Thank you. Great to meet you. And hopefully everyone's learned a little bit of something from this conversation.
Awesome. Okay, guys, if you like this video, give it a like, and I'll see you at the next video.